As a liberty-loving investor or entrepreneur, you probably watched the 2020 US election cycle with maybe a mix of some hope, fear, some sorrow, and maybe even some anger. But there's a few things that this election cycle taught us, probably like no other election cycle has in the past. And we're going to get into all of that today. Stay tuned. It's the Unconventional Entrepreneur Show. Welcome to the Unconventional Entrepreneur Show. I'm your host, Glenn Kowalski. Every week on this channel, you'll find new videos to help liberty-loving entrepreneurs and investors like you find more personal, financial, and location independence. So be sure to click the subscribe and the notification buttons so you never miss your chance to find more freedom in this unfree world. The 2020 US election cycle taught us a lot, even though now, 5 weeks later, we're still waiting to see who won. Number one, we learned that the entire process was broken. At the time of this writing, we're about 5 weeks after the election cycle, and we really still don't know the official winner. Sure, the media is calling for Biden, and they're saying that there's no evidence to support Trump's claims that there was election fraud. And at the same time, you have Trump who's filed lawsuits and Trump supporters who believe that there's so much election fraud that the election could actually turn in his favor. By the time you're watching this, there may be an official winner, but even still, it shows that this is just an absolute mess. I mean, even on American Idol, they can tally up 100 million votes in a single night. And if they had used some type of an open source blockchain voting system instead of the Dominion systems, all these problems would be solved. But yet in 2020, this election cycle has proved to us that the US can't run an election and give us any results, in several weeks or even months. And that whole thing is just ridiculous. Number two, the globalists are winning. By all appearances, at the time of this recording, the globalists are winning in the US. The globalist media and the technocrats like Facebook and Google, they've overwhelmingly supported a globalist agenda, and they're proving that every single day. Most of 2020 has been dictated by the globalists, Dr. Fauci and Bill Gates and all the other globalists and their agenda. We've seen this year overwhelming support for the Great Reset, the World Economic Forum, the Paris Accord, and the WHO and CDC, all globalist organizations. And if you believe the election results, 70 million people have voted for the globalist cheerleaders, Biden and Harris. I mean, who would have believed 1 year ago that any political figure would be brave enough to tell us that we can't have Thanksgiving parties and would suggest things like wearing a mask while we're having sex? But that's where we are. And always remember that if you voted for a smaller government or for more freedom, then your vote was canceled out by these people. And the number three thing that this election cycle has taught us is that most of us don't want any of them. It should have really been a massive landslide in favor of no one. That's why I agree with George Carlin when he said,
because I believe if you vote, you have no right to complain.
A democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner. And regardless of who wins any election, at some point, you're going to be the sheep. In other words, regardless of who's in charge, your individual rights at some point are going to get trampled by the mob. And more people are starting to realize that voting for either party is just voting for your neighbors to be forced to follow your beliefs at the point of a gun. And they're realizing that the entire election process is really just a sham, and they're choosing to stay home. This election cycle has shown us that the US has probably never been more divided than it is right now. And this election and the results of this election isn't bringing anyone closer together. If you're a Trump supporter or a Republican, you can look forward to a collectivist gun grabber taking over when Biden steps in. If you're a libertarian, you can kiss your hopes of a smaller government away probably forever, because once government has power, they never tend to give it back. And Biden's far-left advisors and globalist puppet masters have made it quite clear that they want to increase the size of government as much as possible and take as much control as they can. All of this should make one thing clear to you if you're paying attention and you're a liberty-loving investor or entrepreneur or anyone who is looking for more freedom. And that's that there's never been a more important time, probably in history, for you to have a plan B, even if you consider yourself a total patriot. And if you really want to create that level of freedom and independence in your own life and create that plan B escape hatch that maybe you just need just in case, you're going to want to check out the video that you see on your screen right now. In that video, I'll give you some next steps for finding more personal, financial, and location independence in your own life. I'm Glenn Kowalski from the Unconventional Entrepreneur Show, and I'll see you over there.